Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us. We have a lot of exciting things to discuss over the next hour. While most of you saw most of these folks just win some awards, I think what I'd like to do is just start off by asking this Sarah to introduce herself and just give a very brief history on your involvement in kitchen recycling and sustainability. Again, let's keep the intros fairly brief, since I think most of our audience members saw you all win.
I'll do my best to keep it very brief. I'm Sarah Robertson from Studio Dearborn, Westchester County, New York. I'm a kitchen designer, and I've been recycling kitchens. Actually started out my kitchen design career when I was right out of college. Was actually not a kitchen designer per se. I was renovating buildings, and my very first kitchen that I renovated was for myself, and I used a reused Rut kitchen, which I have to say, I just felt like I was living in the lap of luxury to have this reused kitchen of this luxury brand. So that was sort of the beginning of my journey with using reused, recycled kitchens, and I've been trying to encourage my clients, and most of my clients are now recycling their kitchens when they take them out. It's just so rewarding to see these kitchens going to new homes. So that's me.
Thank you, Sarah. Steve, please.
I'm Steve Feldman. I'm the founder and CEO of Renovation Angel, and we specialize in luxury kitchen recycling nationwide, and it's my passion, and we just want to take this to the next level. Remember, one kitchen at a time to get to that big dream.
Good afternoon. My name is Pete Dean. I am a principal at Dean Inc. in Fairfield County, Connecticut. We're a third-generation design firm. We started our relationship with Steve over 16 years ago and have had great success. And it's something that is so easy to do that I encourage you all to dive in, get your feet wet, and the rewards are endless.
My name is Denise Karen Quinn. My company is In Order to Succeed. We're not in the design business, nor are we in the building business. We are professional organizers and moving concierge. So the client whose kitchen you saw win the award was a client we were helping move into the home, and in the process, we realized she had an incredible kitchen that she also did not want to wind up in landfill. So our role was to facilitate and to coordinate with Renovation Angel, but having been in the organizing and decluttering industry for the past 20 years, there's such a movement, not just in clothing, but in kitchens and furniture. People don't want things to wind up in landfill. We do everything possible to stay green. So to work with a company like Renovation Angel is just a dream.
Hi, I'm Lori Gascoigne. My company is Lori Gascoigne Interior Design out of Short Hills, New Jersey. And I first got involved with Renovation Angel when I came across a client that had a dream for a kitchen that they really couldn't afford. So we turned to Renovation Angel to find something that had all the bells and whistles that they wanted, and been doing kitchens with Steve ever since.
Wonderful. Thank you. And again, welcome. So my company, Green Builder Media, we have been around for about 15 years. We've been tracking consumer behavior, purchasing patterns, purchase drivers. We have a tremendous amount of data, and as you can imagine, we've been tracking the circular economy and recycling and upcycling for many, many years now, and I'm really happy to hear from our esteemed panelists here, and look forward to hearing more about the fact that this is indeed a movement that is just exploding, and we're really kind of in an exciting time for, we'll say, the recycling movement in general. But if we take a step back, the way that that is really manifesting itself on a higher level in our economy is through what's called the circular economy, right? I'm sure a lot of us have heard about the circular economy. And that's manifesting in micro movements like this one, but it's also manifesting on a much, even broader scale in the business sector with respect to corporations minimizing their own waste streams, utilizing their own waste from manufacturing to reuse in other ways, whether it's for product manufacturing or other innovative uses like packaging. It's companies starting to work together where one company is taking the waste from one company, from their streams and giving it for raw materials to another company. So it's really interesting to see how the circular economy is coming to life throughout our entire system. We're also seeing more kind of in the sharing economy where people are utilizing products as services. I think ride sharing is a great example of that. So just within that context, I think that what we're seeing is that the discussion that we're about to have today is not only applicable to homes and to kitchens, but really is reflecting itself in many different ways. And again, just to finish up the intro, we're seeing a definite change in consumer behavior. We just did a consumer survey, and we found that consumers told us that they are changing their behavioral patterns based on an interest in reducing their impact on the environment. So they told us, 80% of consumer respondents told us that they're reducing food waste. 68% that said that they are reducing water use. 41% said they're eating less meat. 50% are driving less. And 72% are reducing their plastic use, single-use plastics. Hey, Pete. Hey, Sarah. So that leads me to my first question, which actually, Steve, since you are, kind of an early pioneer in the kitchen recycling space, what does this mean to our industry? What does recycling and upcycling really mean? How is it indeed manifesting itself? And what are some of the really key trends that you're seeing right now?
Well, it's a great question. When you think about what happens to a kitchen when it gets recycled, there's so much positive. And one of the things, I was on a panel with Green Builder yesterday, and when we talked with the architect and designer, what came out is that if people want to be greener on their building projects, which means sometimes more expensive materials, the recycling is so critical, where you can save $10,000 to $50,000 on each kitchen project. Those dollars can get reinvested into a greener kitchen or getting new, more energy efficient appliances. So the beginning of every project starts with recycling and then the selection of those green materials. And then obviously there's so many other benefits like job creation, landfill reduction, support for charity. But I think the green building industry really needs to embrace that first step of recycling.
Thank you. Sarah, a question for you. As you're working with clients, what are you seeing in terms of the impetus for your clients to actually make the decision to say, I want to recycle a kitchen or I want to use recycled products? Where does that start?
So my conversation with the client about recycling really starts in that very first meeting, where I'm sitting down with them. I don't necessarily even have the job yet, but we're talking about the process and what it's like to work with me. And I'll look around their kitchen. Obviously, I'm taking photos anyway, so I remember what it looks like. And I'll say, have you thought about what you're going to do with your existing kitchen? Because, it's a nice kitchen and we should recycle it. And they'll sort of look at me like, do what? And so we'll talk about the process that we work with Renovation Angel and how easy it is. And literally they'll stop me, in the first 30 seconds. And I'm like, we're sold. We don't need to discuss this any further. Like, just tell us who to reach out to, and we're done. So it's such a fantastic process, at least that Renovation Angel has going. I wish it were national, but someday maybe. But there need to be more organizations out there like that who are sort of recapturing this value and keeping it out of the landfill. So one other thing I wanted to just say is one of the first kitchens I did for a friend years ago, I spent so long on designing this kitchen and the custom storage and all the rest. And afterwards, the husband came up to me and he said, Sarah, I know you spent so long designing the kitchen, but my favorite part about it was the tax break.
That's great. Pete, what are you seeing in terms of, are there any obstacles that people encounter when, again, either making a decision to recycle their kitchen, is that pretty much a no-brainer, or in terms of actually then using recycled products in their kitchen? I mean, what are the obstacles along this value chain that our audience members might need to be aware of?
In terms of obstacles, we don't see a whole lot. I think Steve's number one competition is educating the consumer, number one, and number two is maybe a local church or a relative that they had in mind to give away the product, big or small. So if they're not part of the piece of the discussion, it is just a huge opportunity to talk about Steve's services, and we actually include that in our discussion, like Sarah, on the front end of the project. We've integrated Steve's services into our services, so it's seamless. I can't personally think of a situation where a client said, no, I'm not interested in doing that, we're going to throw it in a landfill. It just doesn't happen. Now, there's some situations where the kitchens are in really, really bad shape, and Steve doesn't see value in that because they'll sit in his warehouse and take up space. That's another discussion we would have. So we as designers have to set that expectation that it might not be accepted to be recycled.
Mm-hmm. Denise, are you seeing certain audience segments driving the decision-making in this segment?
I think what we're saying is that most people, if they have an opportunity to take advantage of tax savings, and if it's a hassle-free situation, so let's use, for instance, Manhattan. A lot of the high-rise, the high-end buildings, you need specific insurance and requirements, and you've got to pass a board inspection to let anybody in to do the work. So to not use a company that's going to deconstruct the kitchen that has those requirements is just going to be more headache, and people are not going to want to do it. So it's got to be a seamless flow of, here's what we recommend you consider doing, here's why, here's the advantage to you. The contractor may not suggest it because maybe that's work that they might have been able to put into their bill, because when Steve's people come in, they do it free of charge, and they do it efficiently and within one day. So it's easy, it makes sense financially, and it just feels good all around.
Thank you. And Lori, as you are having this conversation with folks, again, are you finding that when you're talking, say, with millennials versus boomers versus Xers, I mean, is it all the same conversation, or are there different angles that you have to take when you're looking at different, again, audience segments or psychographic profiles for these different folks you work with?
Honestly, it's pretty much the same conversation regardless of who you're speaking with. It's just wrapping their brain around the idea of bringing a pre-owned kitchen into their space. But once they realize the benefits, if they can get the things that they want but don't have to spend the extra funds to do, and I can give them the ideas of how it's going to all come together, people are quite open to it.
Okay. And Steve, I want to go back to you. We've heard a little bit that everyone, at least on this panel, wishes that your organization serviced certainly the entire country, maybe the entire world. What are your obstacles to growth? How come you're not in, more target markets? Because clearly it's not that you don't have enough energy.
So we actually are nationwide. Our crews were in San Antonio yesterday, in Houston today. We regularly go to Florida, California. But I think what Sarah's talking about is really like having operation centers in those markets. So our biggest obstacle, which Pete mentioned, is education and awareness. A lot of people in the design build industry have said to me, how do you make it fit in somebody's space? A lot of high net worth consumers who have done 5 to 10 remodels in their lifetime, nobody ever said to them, we will recycle your kitchen, do it for free, and hand you a significant tax deduction, and you don't have to do any work. So the fact that we're a new process for the industry, we're a little bit like, computers in the 70s. It's like people aren't used to the idea of recycling. Everybody's used to the idea of trading your car in, but very few people are used to the idea of recycling. Now, there's enough people, Peter, Sarah, Denise, Lori, who are doing this. I mean, we recycle 500 kitchens a year. We're only scratching the surface. So our biggest challenge is getting enough inventory. So we're working to overcome that challenge by creating awareness through the NKBA, through targeted partnerships with showrooms like Dean Inc., with designers like Sarah, with organizers like Denise, working with people like Lori who are going to find clients. But really our biggest challenge is getting enough inventory. So I extend the invitation to everyone listening and everyone who hears this on social media. Ask the question of your clients, what's happening with the kitchen? Would you like to see if we can recycle it? Start delving with the professionals you work with. Oh, you know an architect. Ask them if they have any jobs. And everybody can participate, and it's going to start an avalanche that's going to allow us to grow both organically and strategically.
Thank you. Sarah, I want to go back to you as a kitchen designer. So we've talked about taking out existing kitchen elements and putting them into a recycle stream, which is excellent. Tell us a little bit more about some of the interesting trends that you're seeing with respect to kitchen design.
Sure. I'd like to speak to a couple things that I work with my clients on a bit, beyond just donating their old kitchens. So, one thing that people are starting to look at now a lot is food composting. And we're starting to see, at least in my own municipality and towns around us, they're starting programs where either they're picking up the food waste or at least they're giving you a place to take it to. But the homeowners, they need a place to collect it in the kitchen. So one thing I designed maybe a couple years ago or more was a place to compost within the pull-out trash. And if any of you are interested in sort of that idea, we just took kind of basic, very readily available containers, slotted them in, maxed out the space using restaurant supply stuff, and go on my website or my Instagram feed and take a look at that because it's not terribly expensive. It's obviously, I'm happy to share it with the world, and it's a way to get people to more easily compost their food waste, which I think is something we've all really need to be thinking about and encouraging our clients to do.
Thanks for bringing that up, Sarah. That was actually where I was headed. Was anybody here at the Consumer Electronics Show or CES a couple of weeks ago here in Vegas? Not a big CES crew. All right. Well, I will say that some of the same companies that exhibit here exhibit there, and some of the big ones like Samsung and LG and Panasonic and GE they showcase kitchens of the future there. And some of the innovations that they have were incredible, ranging from things like biometrics where there's a mirror or a sensor in your kitchen and it scans your body and it says you're low on iron today, you should eat some meat, or you're low on this vitamin, or you should have an orange or whatever. It's really incredible. But some of the other kind of big trends that they were showcasing were like seamless food composting, gray water used for dishwashers, right? So all the water that runs down your drain in your sink as you're waiting for that water to get hot or cold, then gets filtered and then funneled into the first cycle in your dishwasher to use, on your dirty dishes. Food growing in kitchens, right? So optimized lighting in specialized kind of cabinets or shelves to actually grow herbs and different foods. So I think there's kind of this new ethic of sustainability that's entering into our kitchens that designers like you are really picking up on and starting to incorporate. Pete, I'm going to throw this hot potato over to you. Are you starting to see some of these trends?
We are, and also in terms of efficiency, lighting is significant. We're doing a tremendous amount of integrated lighting into our cabinetry done in the shop, and it's really a plug-and-play system when they are delivered to the job site. So efficiency of lighting, the quality of LED lighting is significantly better than it was 2 years ago. So we're doing a lot of that.
Mm-hmm, indeed. And Denise, I'll just, to both of you, please, just along the same lines, are you starting to see some of these trends? What are some of the specific elements that are gaining momentum in your markets?
We have clients that'll specifically say, we want you to use natural organizing components for within our cabinet. So rather than, even if it's multiple use plastic, let's go with something that's wood or metal instead. people that are buying in bulk and they want to decant so that we're not buying individual items again in single-use plastic. There's just so much more of an awareness than there ever used to be. People would just say, please just get this out because I don't need it anymore. Let's declutter and let's get it done quickly. Now they want to know, where are you sending it? Are you sustainably giving it to a place that's going to reuse it, or is it going to wind up in landfill? So we never used to be really even asked that question 10, 20 years ago. It just didn't matter as much.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
I'm seeing the same thing, and along those lines, a lot of my clients are, purchasing vintage furniture, antique tables, things like that, just to keep things green as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've even noticed here that some of the plumbing fixtures manufacturers are going back to kind of a retro or vintage design. I saw in the Lixil, which is American Standard booth, they're going back to the Great Gatsby type of design, avant-garde design. So I think vintage and retro continues to have a place in our homes, which I thought was pretty interesting. But continuing on, kind of the trends that are now influencing design and product specification decisions in our homes. We're tracking a couple of different topic areas. First is water, right? And that's water availability, quantity, and also quality, right? So that's on a macro scale. What I like to say always to our audience and our readers, and whenever I'm making presentations, is if you are in the building industry and you're not yet paying attention to water as a pivotal issue, you need to start now, yesterday, because that will be, it already is, but will continue to be the number one prohibiting factor to growth in the building industry. We're already starting to see that across the country, across the world, really. But for example, we're working on a 500 home community in Fort Collins, Colorado. Along the Front Range there, water tap fees have grown by about 400% over the last handful of years. And now we're starting to see across the country that builders can't get permits in certain jurisdictions unless they can show a net zero water element to their communities. So water is and will continue to be a major decision-making and decision-driving factor within our home. So let's start there. I've got water, health, and wellness, and smart home technology, but I think, I'd love to just open it up, and whoever wants to respond, are any of you seeing at this point water kind of entering into the kitchen and kitchen design and kitchen product specification beyond maybe, low flow fixtures in your projects?
Well, I can just speak to the Best of KBIS judging, which we just wrapped up yesterday, and we'll be announcing the awards, the winners at 4 o'clock today. And I can't give away anything, but I will say that we had a long discussion as judges about what important trends we want to be looking at and looking for and influencing the industry to go in a direction of things that are meaningful. And to all of us, sustainability was that number one thing. And one of the first things we looked at was water usage, and saying that we need to see more innovation in this area. And we also need to encourage our clients to think about that as they're replacing fixtures. So I just want to say that it was very important to us.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. How about the same question, but related to connected living and smart home technologies? How much are you all seeing that as a kind of purchase driving or decision making factor in your projects?
The technology's there, and it continues to improve. To be honest, we don't see a lot of interest in the technology between appliances and handheld devices. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people have enough face time in their life that what they're communicating to us is they want they want to put that aside when they're in the kitchen, so they can experience one-on-one with a husband or wife or a loved one or family members or friends and entertain and get away from that for a point in time. It doesn't mean they're not interested in the technology where Your dishwasher will tell you that you need to order some new detergent because you're running low because you've run X amount of cycles. But there is that sense of, I just want to get away from the technology, cook some food, and enjoy my time with my family.
Mm-hmm. So the kitchen at this point remains a technology-free zone for the most part.
To a degree.
To a degree. Okay. What about, again, kind of purchase drivers that relate to this quickly growing market of health and wellness and indoor air quality? Obviously, there's a lot of applications there with respect to, toxin and VOC-free cabinets and countertops, antimicrobial countertops and paints and things like that. So is that also a factor that's driving purchase decisions within your projects?
I find a lot of clients care about when we are moving them back in and we're having the pre-move cleaning. They will ask us for green cleaning solutions, specifically, what are you going to use? And when we're making purchases for them, they'll indicate, please be sure and consider this versus that, as opposed to before we just said, do you need to have this done? And they would give us the permission to go ahead. And so what we do now is we'll ask them, does this matter? Or sometimes we'll say we would prefer to use green cleaning supplies. We would prefer to use this. Is that okay? And we rarely get them to say no.
Right. Well, that's so important because you can have the greenest house in the world with wonderful indoor air quality, and you're bringing in toxic cleaners. Then it's, it makes it kind of is counterproductive there.
That's something that's important to my clients as well. But in addition to that, when I'm speaking to them about potentially using a pre-owned kitchen, some of these kitchens were made in the U.S. They were made out of, old wood. So that's a selling point as well because they're very high quality. They don't have the VOCs. They don't have the off-gassing and et cetera. And that becomes an important factor in their decision.
So let's riff on that. Okay, so along those lines, when you are getting started with a client in a project, again, I hear that the conversation's kind of the same amongst all audiences and at all levels of the market in terms of the compelling factors for using a pre-owned kitchen. But what do you see, what really gets people excited? Is there something in particular where you mention, reclaimed timber or, whatever it is? I mean, is there something in particular that really gets people jazzed?
I think really the kitchens I've purchased from Steve have been really high quality. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the thing that gets them the most excited is they could never afford to purchase that type of a kitchen if it hadn't been pre-owned.
Yeah, great. And Steve, you've been mighty quiet. What's going on in there?
That's unusual.
Exactly.
I'm listening. I'm not a designer.
Right.
I'm an entrepreneur, and it's really like I'm involved with aggregating and collaborating and inspiring. That's what I do. I've never really designed a kitchen in my whole life. I'm not from the kitchen industry. So when it comes to talking about design and the trends, I mean, you're talking to the experts up here. They're in the clients' homes. We're not, I will say that the point that Lori is making about the fact that a pre-owned kitchen is a really environmentally safe product. It's already off-gas. You didn't have to manufacture it. And you're reusing things like the stone. When we sell a pre-owned kitchen, we give the stone away because the stone is a little bit like going to Las Vegas and playing blackjack. You don't know, is it going to survive the removal? Is it going to survive sitting in the warehouse? Is it going to survive the transport? I've seen stone break after it went 3,000 miles and it broke in somebody's hand. So, but the fact that even still, it can be repaired, it can be retrofitted. But these are all materials that can be reused and they're very safe. So I think the trend for certain people, the architect at your panel yesterday said that people in Salem, Washington that are building homes about 750,000 are requesting pre-owned products. They're taking these kitchens, they're stripping down the old paint, they're repainting them and reusing reclaimed kitchens in those houses. So I think there's a real good niche market for the reuse.
So Steve, along those same lines, what are some of the best practices, after years and years of doing this, if folks want to get into, either recycling clients, products in kitchens that they're working with or actually utilizing reclaimed materials. What advice do you have for our audience here? What are some best practices? How can they get started?
So I think one of the best, unless you're really handy, you really should align yourself with somebody like Lori, with a contractor like Jonathan Trudeau or Danny Garabedian. You know, when I talked to these folks on the phone, they said they loved a challenge. They were happy to make the stuff work. You know, if you want to buy a pre-owned kitchen or a showroom display, really find out, is your contractor or designer comfortable doing it? And, you know, I have a lot of goals. One is to recycle every kitchen, but the other thing I want to do is create almost like a Renovation Angel University where designers can learn the art of retrofitting and builders can learn how to make this work, because the skill sets are out there. It's just not a lot of people know how to do it.
Well, I think it's a great idea, because if you think about our existing housing stock and how a lot of it, especially on the East Coast, is really aging out and will pass due for a good remodel, I think that being able to educate more people about recycling and reuse of products is a great idea.
Can I just throw one thing in there? Because in addition to reusing, cabinetry, our focus has really been mostly on getting our clients to donate. But I do have some clients who are brave enough to go on eBay and purchase faucets, hardware. We go on Etsy and get vintage hardware. I have to say, in my own kitchen, I have a Waterworks faucet that I got on eBay. So those are some things to think about as well. There's a lot of construction materials that go up on eBay because they're valuable, they're still brand new. Or you could look to a place like Renovation Angel just for appliances. And then you aren't having to retrofit cabinets, but appliances, Renovation Angel is an amazing source for just sourcing appliances, and your clients will save a lot of money.
Wonderful, thank you. So let's
Can I jump in one more time?
Oh, Steve, please.
When people talk about pre-owned kitchens, it sounds like, ooh, that's something foreign. Every time you buy a house that somebody lived in that isn't new construction or a spec house, you're buying a pre-owned kitchen. And a lot of people don't make that connection. Like, oh my God, I've bought 3 houses with pre-owned kitchens, pre-owned bathrooms, pre-owned lighting. So we're all buying pre-owned product. It's just the idea of taking somebody else's kitchen and putting it in your space is the new idea. Not so much that it was pre-owned.
That's great. Thank you for reminding us of that. I know I have lived in a pre-owned kitchen. So let's go Denise, and then Lori, and then Pete in that order. Again, I'd like to just go back to sage words of advice in terms of, what can our audience members do to get started in this arena? What are some best practices or just some tips that you've learned the hard way along the way that, you can maybe help them avoid?
So once again, since I'm not often the person on the front end, like usually we're being called in maybe when that client is moving back into their home. So my way of doing what I feel is my duty to make this be something that more people are aware of is once I encounter that new contractor that I'm going to work with or the new designer who I happen to be working with, and to introduce them to the idea that maybe we can do another job together and that next kitchen can be a repurposed kitchen. So I think from my standpoint, because I'm not there in the beginning of these projects very often, unlike the one that I was, which is right up there, but to be a voice and to tell people and to let it be known that this exists. And as a matter of fact, I just was writing a blog this week because I thought I need to put my money, I need to put my effort where my interest is, and I think I need to tell more people in my industry about this and just get the word out.
Yeah. So again, as I said earlier, I think it's that conversation at the beginning of the project is essential, and the educational piece, and the value that a company like Steve can bring to the process. All of his employees have background checks, so there's not a concern of safety. They're professional. They come in, they protect surrounding areas. And one key thing that we do now for the last 3 years is is a line item on our first proposal. So we're showing them real dollar value in working with a company like Steve right out of the gate. And it makes us look professional, it makes Steve look professional, and it raises a tremendous amount of confidence that, yeah, this is not a very difficult process.
I'd just like to encourage everybody to give it a try. There's a lot of amazing products out there that, like the appliances. I've purchased, I don't even know how many appliances from Steve, and most of them are super high end. They last for years and years and years. Same with the kitchens. You know, give it a try. Maybe start with a bathroom and put in a vanity. But there's a lot of amazing products out there that you can get that are either pre-owned or they are sold off from showrooms that are just going to go in the landfill, and they might as well end up in someone's home.
Thank you. All right, so Sarah, tell us about your favorite project that you've done. Obviously, this is one of many awards, I'm sure, that you've won. So it doesn't necessarily have to be this project that you just won an award for, but tell us about your favorite project and why.
Okay, so this is not about sustainability now, is that right?
It doesn't have to
Off
be,
topic.
although it would be great if it. No, I'm just kidding. But just open. That's an open question.
Okay. So the project that won the design competition a couple of nights ago was a project referral by a friend, a lovely, Victorian, and a super old kitchen that unfortunately we couldn't even, Steve wouldn't have looked at it for 2 seconds. But so it was really important to try to incorporate some of the elements of sort of the Victorian home, a little bit of history, a little bit of classic detail. But the client was also kind of brave enough to bring in some fun highlights. So she was actually the one. I was working with a modern client, and she was doing a very modern kitchen, and we talked about doing this chevron paneling detail, and wasn't going to work for her for various reasons. Well, it turned out those two were friends, those two clients, and she must have said something to my other client in the Victorian, who then said, "Hey, what do you think about this chevron cool paneling?" And I said, "Are you kidding? You mean you're brave enough to do that? Like, we're doing that. That's so awesome." So we were able to kind of mix a shaker style with kind of something that was very graphic and different, and pull together a look that was on one hand modern, but also had a lot of kind of traditional elements. So yeah, it was a really fun kitchen to work on.
That's great. Pete, would you answer that question as well?
Oh boy, my favorite kitchen.
Your favorite project that you've worked on and why?
I've worked with, I just finished a job in New Canaan, worked with this client in the past. They resurfaced, building their dream home. And as you all know, the design trends right now are very minimalist and clean lines and a lot of whites and grays that we see in New England. But they were building a Tudor home, and they really were looking for that true traditional Tudor style. So bringing those elements into design was exciting for me, and getting away from what we see very often is trends. So that speaks to me because it's real recent, and it was different.
Thank you. Sarah, you just mentioned that the Victorian kitchen that you were remodeling, Steve would not have looked at. So my question actually is for you, Steve. What are your criteria for taking product and recycling?
So we have today's criteria, which is based on the financial reality that we can't really take kitchens that are going to resell in the tri-state New York area for like less than $3,000 because the cost to remove them, transport them, warehouse them, sell them, the nonprofit loses money. If it's outside the tri-state area, you're talking, it has to be over $10,000 of resale. If I have to go to Florida, the Carolinas, Texas. Now, that's today's reality. If my dream comes true, we're going to have Renovation Angel Platinum, Gold, Silver, and Bronze. Platinum and Gold are going to be the kind of kitchens that Lori repurposes, that Peter and Sarah and Denise's clients are donating. silver is going to be like for the people who want to spend, you know, 5 to 10,000 for a kitchen. And then bronze is going to be my gift to the flood victims in Houston, people in Appalachia, in very poverty-stricken areas throughout the world who don't even have a kitchen. And we're just going to fill trucks, and we're going to have the Renovation Angel trucks descend upon people who don't have a kitchen, and we can just give them away for free. So let's make this big enough so we can give everybody a kitchen at every level of financial sector, all right?
That's lovely. Thank you. Lori and Denise, I'd like to ask you, I want to shift the question a little bit. Obviously, you just won some great and esteemed awards, so congratulations. Tell us a little bit about the highlights of the projects that you just won awards for.
Wow. This particular client who we worked with was she and her husband were incredible people, so that part of it always makes the job fun. But the process was so seamless and so easy, and when we had our evaluation, everything, when we called through to Renovation Angel, it just got done. And that's always great for us to be able to work with a company and client that makes our job easy. Also, this client happened to be, she's an art collector, so when I first saw her ripping out this kitchen, I was just like a little bit aghast. Like, it's a gorgeous kitchen. Why are you doing this? But what she put in was equally phenomenal, but of a different style and taste. And then it was decorated with the most outrageous artwork in ways that I've never even seen anything like that. So that project was from end to end a real delight and a real pleasure. Did I answer the question? Yeah, it was a special project. That's all I could say. And it's really nice to be here to talk about it and to promote more projects like this, hopefully.
Thank you.
So the project that I won the award for is actually my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's home. And like I said, they were a little strapped for their budget. And it did take a lot to get this kitchen in their house. We had to raise the ceiling, knock out some walls. We had to modify the cabinetry a bit. But it was a lot of fun because it's people that are near and dear to me, and they were open and willing to give it a try. It was a lot of fun.
That's always nice when you can work with clients with open minds, right? All right, next question, and we can just, whoever wants to chime in. I'm curious to hear any particular products, countertops, anything that utilize recycled, elements within the products themselves. I think probably countertops, maybe flooring, are the most applicable. But any particular products that you've worked with that you really like because they are made with recycled materials, or they are indeed recyclable beyond shifting an appliance from one kitchen to another, but something that has inherent recycled or recyclable qualities.
Live edge wood countertops.
I'll just throw out there that I think some of you at least know that I'm like huge into kitchen storage and organization. So I know that Kessa Boomer is coming out with a whole line of storage and dividers that go inside drawers and so on. That's made completely out of recycled material, which is really cool. And hopefully we'll see more of that.
Yeah, I think we will start seeing more materials. Oh, were you gonna?
No, my favorite product is the reclaimed floors. The old wood. I have them in my house as well, and they're just beautiful. And there's a lot of history there.
Yeah, they're lovely indeed. Wonderful. Well, I think we are coming up on the end of our time. So I think with that, why don't we just start with Sarah, kind of go down the line. Any closing comments?
I'm just going to make one closing comment that I think, as far as Renovation Angel is concerned, I think they have no problem with demand. It's all about supply. So when all of you are speaking to your clients, please, have them think about what are they doing with everything that they're taking out, and donate whatever process works, but trying to keep it out of the landfill.
Thank you, Sarah. You couldn't have said it better. It's really all about supply. That's the beginning of the circular economy. So I invite everyone to join us, one kitchen at a time. Love to hear from everybody. You want my card? I'm going to be hanging around afterwards. I'll happy to give it to you.
If you haven't done this, make your first step, and I promise you it will be very rewarding for you and your client and the entire experience.
I'm going to agree with what everybody else said because I think I already said how much this is an important thing for me personally, and having children in their 20s who are constantly informing me of ways in which maybe my generation has been wasteful and ways that we didn't realize it even mattered. So I would say if you've got kids that are in their teens and 20s, listen to them, hear what they have to say, because they are full of valuable information to help change our lives, not just in ways that we even think need to be addressed, because we haven't been raised the way they have and are aware the way they are.
And I would just have to say, start small. If you're going to do a bathroom remodel, if the only thing worth saving is a faucet, donate the faucet or a light fixture, because let me tell you, his place is busy with a lot of people, and they're buying just about anything and everything that comes in there. So just start small.
We talk about our buyers. It's like an 800-pound gorilla, and you can never have enough bananas to feed the 800-pound gorilla. So please keep our buyers stocked with lots of pre-owned merchandise.
And just out of curiosity, has anyone in the audience either recycled anything in your projects, particularly kitchen projects, or bought recycled materials? Okay, so a handful of you, that's great. All right, next year we expect you all back here, and we expect lots more hands.